Hello, this is part two of my outstanding three-part series using the words that start with C that I believe a lot of Americans are forgetting about. And if we don't focus on getting it back into the mainstream conscience of this country, well, I believe we're somewhat fucked. And again, I'm not a doomsdayer, conspiracy theorist, pepperer. I'm simply someone who likes to do research, and based on my findings, I verbally react. Our government is set up as a republic. The Constitution, written in 1787, is the supreme law of the land because no law may be passed that contradicts its principles. No person or government is exempt from following it. The Constitution establishes a federal democratic republic form of government. That is, we have an indivisible union of 50 sovereign states. It is a democracy because people govern themselves. It is a representative because people choose elected officials by free and secret ballot. And it is a republic because a government derives its power from the people. Anyway, and in my opinion, the second C that made America great is capitalism. Capitalism means that people, not the government, own most businesses. In the U.S., businesses decide what to sell. They decide how much money to charge for products and services. Then people decide what they want to buy. This is called a market economy. The economy is controlled by individual people, not by the government. The United States is a capitalist market economy. Capitalism, obviously, is an extremely important and underappreciated word that no one seems to think about anymore. Outside of the government sticking its neck in when needed, and certainly when it's not needed, capitalism is by far the second best gift the Founding Fathers gave American citizens after the Constitution. Okay, let's start out with identifying our form of government. I know this is like boring and stuff, but everyone needs to know the base here, where we're starting from. We have what would be called a laissez-faire capitalism, whereas private individuals or firms use economic resources and they control their distribution in voluntary trade. Overall, it's based on supply and demand, but at no point are you ever competing against any form of government. Let me break it down like in real word terms. I'm going to give you a few examples. Here's one. It says simply, you and your family aren't eating unless you have a job. Furthermore, if you left a job that you were skillful at, then your manager may not be able to put food on his table if he's not able to replace you. Now, that scenario can go on and on and on until it reaches the owners of the company who need to maintain its status, or another company who they compete against may just take over the market, etc., etc., etc. So, of course, they will do what they can to keep their employees, especially ones they really need. Anyway, this is but one of many examples of capitalism. Here are a couple more. This is from Investopedia. Quote, the proper role of government in a capitalist economic system has been hotly debated for centuries. Unlike socialism, communism, or fascism, capitalist theory does not assume that a centralized public authority has any role. Yet nearly all economic thinkers and policymakers argue in favor of some level of government influence in the economy of the nation. End quote. And here are some examples of capitalism. In the capitalist economy, trade and industry are driven by private owners and individuals rather than the government. The production of goods and services is driven by the forces of supply and demand rather than the government mandated. And most proponents of capitalism, from libertarian to Keynesians, support the idea of government having some involvement in the state of the economy. Here's where I'm at. This is my opinion of the side of it after reading, for years on this particular topic. Anyway, my opinion, the federal government needs to play a role in a few ways financially, and everything else should go back to the states. Now, here are a couple examples that the federal government should be involved in regarding spending money on. I would have probably added immigration, but the federal government has consistently proved that they cannot do it. So the states would have to get together, figure out costs, and divide it up and pay it to the states handling our borders. All right, in my opinion, the federal government can pay for these things. Number one, all armed forces in the United States. That should be paid by the federal government. Number two, and I might go either way on this, but number two, Social Security. And Social Security has to be paid only, and I repeat, only, in the funding as it stays an independent federal agency. Not $1 can be used for any other purpose than paying individuals who've put into Social Security only. Can't be used in the general fund, can't be used for anything else. Why am I bringing up this topic? Because we're at a financial tipping point, and we currently have the most bloated, highest spending, economy-killing Congress in world history. I mean, what do these clowns say to each other when they're adding up and getting ready to borrow an additional $1.5 trillion more than what they've received? They're spending that $1.5 trillion, without having the income for it. Is there any expenditures that these guys turn down? I mean, there's the madness. It just won't end. Remember, they, not me and not you, they, Congress, who just cannot stop themselves from spending. And since I know no one in Congress is going to ask me my opinion, I say fuck them. Anyway, if they were to ask me what I believe Congress needs to do immediately, here's what I would tell them. Starting in 2024, not $1 can be borrowed by the United States of America until our debt is paid off. Furthermore, starting in 2024, $2 trillion a year must be paid off per year to our debt until its debt is at zero. I would make a law this afternoon that there could be no more deficit spending, period. The reason I'm harping on this is because due to the government and the government alone, they have run our debt up to $33 trillion. Now, because our country is set up on capitalism and individual liberty, that $33 trillion is really individual and businesses' debts, and it's from sea to shining sea. There is another option. We could switch to socialism and allow the government to buy and sell and pay it back that way. So, I mean, which way do you guys prefer? Remember what I said early on. The economy is controlled by individual people, not by the government. The United States is a capitalist market economy. The government has made that debt, and that debt devalues the dollar. The world loves to see a weak U.S. dollar. We do not, as it's responsible for inflation domestically and increased exports and foreign companies' profits instantaneously. Congress is overstepping, circumventing, basically fucking with the dollar. Hence, they are impeding, not helping. Through our government and our government alone, they have made colleges and universities way, way, way too expensive. They have made healthcare way, way, way too expensive. We paid $658 billion for the fucking interest on the debt. $658 billion in interest. When do you think our interest payments will go over $1 trillion? Next year? 2 years? No way, it's more than 2 years. I mean, these fucks will have to borrow at least another $1.5 trillion each year until someone with some sanity can clean this mess up. Anybody want to tell me how the U.S. is faring with NAFTA? Which could be the worst business decision in the history of the United States. Well, except if you're Canadian or Mexican. I could go on. We are currently, and we have for years, and I don't see anything outside, but we are the world's largest ATM. We are beholden each year to 435 men and women and their ability to spend. Well, here's my opinion on how Congress should be run. Now, this is but one example, as there are way too many to discuss, and I want to stay somewhat on topic here. Anyway, I would start with Congress only meeting 1 month per quarter or 4 times a year, and then they'll rotate maybe 40 or so congressmen into the offices while they're all gone, just in case something arises. They don't need any more than that. They have ruined, destroyed our great House of Representatives that should now be called the Banker's House of Representatives, or B-Whore. Remember, every day Congress is not in session, that's 1 day less they can spend our money. Over the years, Congress has done a few positive things, like adding certain labor laws, breaking up monopolies, stuff like that, while playing a role of overseer to markets, and that was okay. It was okay as long as the government kept out of the private sector and allowed capitalism to continue to thrive. Again, because I'm trying to pound it in everyone's head, when we as a country are spending over $6 trillion and we're short 1.6 trillion, I feel like I'm the only person who finds this reprehensible and shocking. We have to borrow that money as we are short $1.5 trillion on our commitments. I mean, do you think that puts just a tiny bit of government influence into the business sector? Laissez-faire, by definition, is basically let people do with what they choose. Government policy should not interfere with the operation of natural economics. Markets should naturally be competitive. Survival of the fittest. Capitalism is the greatest form of government to citizens economic system in the world. Period. The greatest form of economic system in world history. What has capitalism given us? I mean, our inventions that we gave to the world in just the last 100 plus years is incalculable and has made the U.S. the wealthiest country in world history. This is where I see a problem. Check that, a huge problem. In this DEI and wokeness horseshit that is starting to pervade the nation, I believe it will also add in getting our government into more and more and more outside spending. We have to do something. For the generations that have been born and raised on this wokeness ideologies, they'll all arrive in Congress in the next 10 to 30 years. I'm sure I'll be blasted for saying this, but Americans for the last couple hundred years have put pride and aura that we can and will kick anyone's ass anytime, anywhere. We developed that attitude because we were raised on that attitude. All the inventions, education, medicine, the arts, and on and on and on. That's been given to the world. Hey, that was us. The U.S. dollar has been used by the world as the currency that all other countries use to value their own currencies. Yeah, that's us. The dollar's role as the primary reserve currency for the global economy allows the United States to borrow money more easily and impose painful financial sanctions on other countries. Other countries are beginning to consider alternatives to the U.S. dollar. The dollar has been the world's principal reserve currency since the end of World War II, and it is the most widely used currency for international trade. High global demand for dollars allow the United States to borrow money at lower cost and use currency as a tool of diplomacy, but that comes with some drawbacks. Extensive U.S. sanctions have driven some countries to transact in other currencies, raising fears of de-dollarization. Our dollar always needs to be the strongest currency in the world. Our Congress is doing everything they can to devalue it. I say everything they can, as they have shown anyone, a fucking thing that they've done to refute it. Nothing. If capitalism in the United States of America is hindered by our government and is not allowed to thrive, our government and our legislators will by themselves play the only role in any economic downfall of this country. So please, feel free to thank your local congressman, thank them once again for spending over $6 trillion last year. But I will say this, they garnered a 9% approval rate, which I think was better than the year before. Here's something that bothers me, and looked it up a little bit, but you want to know why people who run for Congress will spend millions of dollars for a position that is for 2 years, and frankly, the second year they spend a good bit of time on running for another 2-year term, and that pays $174,000 annually. Millions of dollars for a $174,000 job, and you have to run every other year. Well, how about this? If you add up, how much Congress spent in 2022? It means the average congressperson in the House, that's 435 of them, spent $14 billion each. Do you think when the Founding Fathers set up our government, this is what they intended? Part 3 will be coming up soon. Thanks.